I'm going to show you how I process a t-shirt into t-shirt yarn. The first thing I do is lay out my t-shirt and I cut off the sleeves. I cut it just inside the armhole seam. Sometimes I get a little bit of that armhole seam inside the sleeve, but that's okay, I can trim that. These become marble bags or little girls' purses. You can go ahead and sew up that bottom, put in a drawstring, and then you can put something decorative and make a cute little girl's purse. If it's a marble bag, I don't add anything like an applique because I think they might go in pockets and I don't want to make it bulkier. Here's a picture of some of the marble bags that I've done. I'm not sure I'll do them all exactly the same way, but probably pretty close. The next thing I do is I cut off this t-shirt hem. It's generally very narrow. I line it up carefully so that when I trim, I'm trimming about the same amount on the front and the back. Now you can also do this with a rotary cutter, but it's not necessary. Scissors work just fine. Now this t-shirt makes a band, and I actually use these for a project, sometimes jump ropes and sometimes headbands or other projects. So I go ahead and just save these. Now you're ready to cut t-shirt yarn. Lay out your t-shirt nice and flat. Try to be sure everything's just about as even and flat as you can get it. It's hard with t-shirts because some of them have been stretched out a little bit, but that's okay. It works out really well. If you have a wrinkle, it's usually not a problem. It just gets absorbed into the t-shirt yarn. Now, if you're cutting these with scissors and you have difficulty cutting through many layers, just cut through just the front and the back. Don't fold it like I'm going to show you in a minute. I cut at 1.5 inches. Some people do more than that, 2 inches. I wouldn't go less than 1.5 inches. And you want to cut to about 1 inch from the fold. So you have this is still joined. And so you're cutting all the way about 1 inch to the end. I'm just eyeballing these. Some people measure and mark with a pencil. If you get a little bit narrow, as I did a little bit right here, it's okay. Try to keep fairly even strips. I'm going to show you how I do this with my rotary cutter. I go ahead and lay it out the same way, and then I fold one side up so that I have about 1 inch left. I've just put it up onto itself, leaving about 1 inch space between the two folds. And then I just use my rotary cutter So if you quilt and you have one of these, that's handy also. the end result is going to be the same. Your last strip is going to be where the armholes end and go all the way through to the end. So you're going to cut these strips, whether by hand or rotary cutter, all the way up until you get to the armhole section. This one didn't cut all the way through, so I'm going to go back and fix that, which is a problem with the rotary cutters. So, okay, and so now we're left with this chest torso portion up to the armholes. And I actually use this because even though this has a pattern here, t-shirts can be used on both sides. And so this one is fairly thin, and the design shows, but on the thicker t-shirts it doesn't. And I make other things with this portion. Here's some baby cradles that I made from some previously. Okay, so now for the yarn. We are left with this weird looking piece. It is still together on this fold at the top. The loops are still together at the bottom. And it makes this fringy looking thing. I thread that onto my arm. So starting on this end, I just put my arm through that fold like a tunnel. So I have that fold on my arm, and then on both sides you can see are the cut strips. Remember, these are still looped at the bottom, so that is not separated. I'm going to start, I'm going to try to turn so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to start on this end and see where these end. What you want to do is start on the edge and angle up to that first cut. So it's not an exact measurement, but I just angled up. And now on each of these, I'm going to go from the cut edge to the cut edge, and it makes this angle each time. So you're not going straight across. If you're going straight across, you're wrong. You want this angle, and that's why we cut that first one, to get it started this way. So at this point, it's just the first open end to the first opened end. I hope this is coming through the video okay. And I do that all the way up this strip on my arm. So continue cutting. It's really hard to get mixed up if you've cut that first strip. Now you notice this one is much further down. It didn't cut all the way through. You can either take your scissors and kind of make it match, or you can just cut on this angle a little bit further. But it's always, after you've cut that first half strip, now when you get to the end, you will have 2 strips on the bottom, but only 1 on the top. And that's because we're cutting that angle. So just take that last one and kind of go, as you did in the beginning, toward that edge. Now you notice I got a little bit of the armhole. I'm just going to kind of trim that notch out. And that will make this strip a little bit thinner right here, but not bad. And on the other end, there's a little bit of that armhole, and I'm just going to cut it off. And now you have one continuous strip. All of this is just one big strip. You notice how flat these strips are, but I want the yarn to be curled. And the way you do that is you put on at least one glove. I'm right-handed, so I put the glove on my left hand. Now these are quilting gloves, but it can be a gardening glove, anything that protects this portion of your hand from the heat of the friction, or sometimes the fingertips, because I do it different depending on how hot it gets. Find an end, and what you're going to do is just pull it through so there's pressure here on this point. And as you pull it, you notice it starts to curl. So I'm going to pull this entire strip through my gloved hand. I'm going to stop in a second and show you the difference. I think I started pulling from the wrong end, so I'm going to untangle this so it pulls better. Okay. I'm going to stop for a second and show you. This is the already pulled strip, and this, you notice, is much flatter. It's the not yet pulled strip. And so we're going for this look. Continue through that entire strip. If you still get too hot right here in this area, I will change and use these two fingers and just pull it through those two fingers. That actually makes a tighter pull. When you get all the way through to the end, I pick it up and I do it again. So I always do 2 full pulls. As I said, if you use those fingers, it actually makes a tighter pull. Now, I don't know if you can actually see the difference between 2 pulls and 1 pull. But in reality, there is quite a bit of difference. So I always do 2 pulls. Now, where there's a lot of a vinyl logo, you notice it doesn't make that tight roll. It rolls somewhat, but it's a thicker, open portion. But don't worry, that's okay, and it works out fine. You also notice this t-shirt had side seams. So there are seams periodically in the jump rope. Your preference is t-shirts without side seams, but I have jump ropes that are out on prototype, and my 3-year-old grandson uses them for everything. Not a jump rope, but they are everything in his play. And so I get to see functionality if that causes a wear problem. And so far, it has not. So, this is all set. Roll it in a ball. And it'll be ready to use. You need 3 colors, 3 strips of yarn to make 1 jump rope. So process a few t-shirts and then get started.